Ladies and gentlemen, it is still February and I am still celebrating all of the accomplishments that our African American veterans made on the battlefield to make it possible for veterans like me to serve in the war on terrorism. So today we're going to talk about a very special group of African American veterans known as the Tuskegee Airmen. They flew in the air. Not like me, I couldn't do it. I'm a Cav Scout. I like my boots on the ground. I need to feel the earth under my boots at all times. But let's get into it. Here we go. All right. Now, what we're going to do today is talk about all of the reasons why African Americans weren't allowed to serve and, well, not allowed to serve, but why the Army was, well, the military was segregated, and realize how some of these beliefs are still in today's world. Let's get right on into it. So what I did today is ask Google Gemini, why weren't African Americans allowed to serve in the military? And the first thing they came back with is it's a misconception that we weren't allowed to serve back in the day. However, we did have to be segregated because of the reasons I'm going to tell you. And the unfortunate thing is many of these reasons back then, some of them are still prevalent today. But let's get into the first one. Fear of insurrection. Insurrection. During the 18th and 19th centuries in the South, there was an intense fear that if enslaved people were trained in the use of firearms and military tactics, they would use those skills to lead slave results. Number two, one of the most prevalent factors that we have today. Military service has historically been linked to citizenship and manhood. By allowing African Americans to serve, the government would have been implicitly acknowledging equality, that black men were capable of the same bravery and discipline as white men, and the right that those who bled for this country deserved the right to vote and hold property. To maintain Jim Crow laws and slavery, the power structure felt it had to deny black men the dignity of the uniform, which is a very big one because when it comes to that social hierarchy, I earned this Purple Heart. George Washington is on that Purple Heart. Now, let's get into the third one, which, oh my God, we all know about this, especially with what's going on in the world today. Scientific racism and prejudice. Throughout the world wars, many high-ranking military officers held deeply biased views, falsely believing that African Americans lacked the intelligence, natural courage, and leadership capabilities required for combat. The result? This led to the superior role trap. Instead of being allowed to fight, many were relegated to manual labor such as digging trenches, cooking, or loading ammunition, not because they weren't capable, but because the military refused to let them prove otherwise. Let's get into that real quick when it comes to this scientific racism and prejudice. Here's the scientific racism. We didn't come here to this country as equals. So, how can you tell an entire group of people you're not allowed to get an education? When you do, you can't go to school with our people. And then you call us uneducated. We weren't allowed to read. We weren't allowed to write. We weren't allowed to learn how to read or write. So this scientific racism and prejudice, and I'm going to get into this later, it still is very, very, very prevalent today when people say, boy, I got a black pilot. I sure hope they're qualified. You wouldn't have to worry about that if back in the day, we were allowed to learn how to read and write and get the same education that everybody else got in this country. But I digress. Let's continue. Number four, the fear of armed veterans. After the wars ended, there was a backlash against returning black veterans. Of course, hey, we teaching these poor Negroes how to fight and how to use guns. One day they may use them against us. And as a Purple Heart veteran that fought the war on terror, let me tell you how dumb all of this is. I joined the Army at 17 years old when I was still in high school as a Cavalry Scout, a 19 Delta. I deployed to Iraq in 2006 during the height of the war. This was known as the Troop Surge. And our deployments got extended from 12 months to 15 months. They had this new type of IED that came out called EFPs. These things were killing us left and right, cutting through us like butter. But I saw men become fathers on the battlefield. 2 people in my platoon went on R&R and they came back as fathers. And I instantly said, okay, this deployment means more to me. These are my brothers. I need to be in that lead truck. And if you don't know what that means, if you ever see any military movie, being in lead truck means that you're the first one to get hit with an IED. Back then, the first one to get hit with an EFP. More than likely to be the first one to die. Also on dismounted patrols, I was always the one to kick in that door first. I'm Cav. That's what we do. I want my boots on the ground and I want my boots on the door. Clearing that house, kicking in that door. These are misconceptions that we had. Hey, we're not brave enough. We're not smart enough. We don't know enough. That prevented us from serving in the military for years. And all of that means nothing. Because when I deployed, hey, the bullets and the bombs didn't discriminate. But let's talk about the Tuskegee Airmen. They broke the color barriers, right? All right, so who were the Tuskegee Airmen? The Tuskegee Airmen were the first African-American military aviators in the United States Armed Forces, serving during the era when the military was still racially segregated. Their success was a major catalyst for the eventual integration of the U.S. military. Before 1940, African Americans were barred from flying for the U.S. military. Many high-ranking officials held the prejudiced belief that black men lacked the intelligence or courage for combat flight. Once again, it's not lacking the courage or the intelligence. We just weren't allowed to learn and we weren't allowed to fight. That's it. That's it. That's it. And to honor the Tuskegee Airmen, what I did, and I'll show y'all, I got tatted with one of the Mustangs that they flew during World War II. During their flights when they helped the bomber planes go over there to Europe and help all of us live the life that we have today. Why does that matter? Because representation matters, okay? I'm a first-generation veteran, and it shouldn't matter, but I'm a first-generation African-American veteran, and representation matters. And if you're a 16-year-old, a 17-year-old, a 13-year-old out there, like myself, like me, back in 2004, and don't know what you want to do with your life, I would strongly advise you, join the military. Any branch you want. Any branch you want, because representation matters. And after 20 years of war, there's no stories or movies about an African American serving on the front lines. And that's a small part of the reason why I wrote my book, Cavalry, available on Amazon, that you can read about me and my stupid, dumb friends in the 361st Cavalry Regiment out of Fort Carson, Colorado. Go pick that up. I hope you learned something today and learned how dumb racism and prejudice is. My name is David Kendrick. You can find out more about me at my website, www.dkendrickjr.com. And if you need a keynote speaker, you can also visit me there. Go to my wonderful website and let's talk about me, talking for you. Happy Black History Month.